Hello guys, I'm Tom, and today we'll see how one becomes a xenomorph. Within the dark and fascinating universe surrounding the xenomorphs and the enigmatic black pathogen, a biological virus created by the legendary engineers, the very architects of humanity, lies a transformation that, by its nature, is both terrifying and fascinating: the Abomination. This mutated form, also known as the manifestation that arises when a human is infected by this lethal pathogen, represents a grotesque mix between a mindless zombie and a relentless xenomorph, giving life to an irrational, brutally powerful, and extremely dangerous creature. The combination of enormous strength and superhuman endurance makes this abomination an almost unbeatable adversary, a lethal threat that mercilessly eliminates anyone who crosses its path. The exact origin of these abominations remains shrouded in mystery and speculation. Their terrifying appearance and complex life cycle, which we have begun to unravel thanks to additional content from the Alien universe, have led many fans to consider them among the most fascinating, yet also the most enigmatic and disturbing monsters of the entire saga. Beyond being mere mutations, these creatures represent the most extreme and twisted consequence of the biological engineering created by the engineers, as well as the deadly use of the xenomorph virus as a biological weapon. In this video, I intend to dive into the history and the most notable characteristics of these abominations. We will conduct a deep and detailed analysis of the famous Firefield mutation, the one shown in the movie Prometheus, and explore its physical appearance, behavior, personality, biology, life cycle, and not only that, but we will also reveal its surprising abilities, strengths, and weaknesses. Understanding these creatures will help us unravel a crucial part of the dark legacy left by the engineers and the catastrophic consequences of their experiments. Abominations are the most grotesque and disturbing product of the genetic accelerator designed by the engineers, or, in some cases, of the xenomorph virus itself. They represent one of the most radical mutations observed in humans within the Alien universe. For this transformation to occur, very specific conditions must be met. First, a human must be infected by a considerable amount of the black pathogen, which is found in a specially lethal liquid form. But simple infection is not enough. The person must have undergone extreme stress or severe trauma just before the virus enters their bloodstream, and additionally, must have suffered a serious wound that facilitates the rapid spread of the pathogen throughout their body. The conjunction of these factors, which act as biological triggers, causes the metamorphosis that transforms the infected individual into this monstrous creature known as an abomination after a few hours of incubation. Although these creatures share certain similarities with traditional xenomorphs or the XX-121 model, such as their elongated head, sharp teeth, and deadly claws, they do not possess the same agility or intelligence as a common xenomorph. However, what they lack in speed or cunning, they more than make up for in resilience and brute strength. This combination makes them a lethal threat to any human who crosses their path, and not even the armed colonial forces are prepared to face them easily. In the official Alien canon, abominations have only appeared in humans infected with the xenomorph virus used as a biological weapon. It is crucial to highlight that the infection must come from exposure to the black pathogen in its liquid form, because if the virus is present in its airborne form, the result is lethal and almost instantaneous, certain death for anyone who inhales the virus. Throughout the history of the Alien universe, these creatures have emerged at two critical moments that marked a before and after in the saga. First, during the Prometheus expedition in the year 2093, and nearly a century later, during a rescue mission in the year 2193. The first documented abomination was the mutation of the geologist Chong Firefield during the events of Prometheus. This took place on the moon LV-223, within the context of an expedition funded by the Wayland Corporation aboard the ship Prometheus. The mission sought to discover the engineers, the mysterious creators of humanity, and understand their intentions. During the exploration of the main temple, which functioned as a military base and biological weapons laboratory, an accident would forever change the crew's fate. Firefield, while investigating a secret chamber with inscriptions and a stone-carved head, led his team to discover numerous containers holding the lethal black pathogen. The discovery of an engineer's body and a special helmet increased tension, and when a fierce sandstorm trapped Firefield and his companion Melberg inside the temple, the situation became critical. The containers activated due to the presence of human biological matter, releasing the virus. During their stay, they encountered alien worms called hammerpits, which mutated upon contact with the black pathogen. One of these worms violently attacked Melberg, fracturing his arm and penetrating his suit, causing his death by asphyxiation. Firefield tried to defend his companion, but the worm's acidic blood splashed onto him, damaging his face and helmet, and leaving him unconscious in a pool of the dangerous black liquid. When the rest of the team returned, they found only Melberg dead and Firefield missing. It was later revealed that Firefield had mutated into an abomination and returned to the Prometheus in an almost irrational state, mercilessly attacking the crew. In a terrifying sequence, this creature eliminated several mechanics with its claws and fists, resisting gunfire and flamethrower attacks until it was finally crushed and burned. Almost a century later, in 2193, similar cases were recorded during a rescue mission. The crew of the ship Montero boarded the remains of the ship Kronos, also owned by Weyland-Yutani. The Kronos, which in 2110 had explored a planet similar to Prometheus's, had collected samples of the Xenomorph virus. During their studies, several scientists were infected and underwent mutations similar to Firefield's. This viral strain, known as Draconis 26, named after the planetoid where it was discovered, proved to be different but equally lethal. The resulting abominations caused a massacre aboard the Kronos, wiping out the entire crew and destroying the ship's systems, leaving it lost forever. When the Montero crew arrived, they found these abominations in a state of hibernation after having exterminated the uninfected humans. This discovery provided Weyland-Yutani with valuable information about the life cycle and evolution of these creatures. However, both ships, Kronos and Montero, were destroyed with no survivors, in an attempt by the corporation to prevent these abominations and the virus from reaching Earth for study. Despite everything, some humans, with the help of an android, managed to destroy the ships and eliminate all samples of the pathogen and the abominations created. Now that we have unraveled the history and origins of the abominations within the vast and dark alien universe, it is time to delve deeply into the 4 fundamental stages that constitute their evolution or life cycle. These phases mark not only a physical change, but also a mental and behavioral transformation that defines the terrifying nature of these creatures. In this exploration, we will discover how their appearance varies in each of these stages, the physical characteristics that differentiate them, what we know about their behavior and personality, and those surprising abilities that make them deadly enemies capable of unleashing chaos and destruction. As happens with many organisms affected by the black pathogen, the virus created by the engineers, these creatures undergo a gradual and painful transformation. It is not a sudden change, but an evolutionary process that takes them from an infected human form toward their final manifestation, a terrifying, powerful, and lethal beast, the product of a genetic rewrite that completely distorts the host's essence. The first stage is much subtler and often goes unnoticed, although the signs of transformation are evident to those who know what to look for. This phase is simply called the infected At this point, the individual begins to experience profound psychological alterations that manifest in episodes of erratic behavior, anxiety attacks, disturbing hallucinations, and growing mental destabilization. The human mind falters under the corrosive influence of the virus, gradually losing control. But it is not only the mind that suffers changes. Biologically, the infected's DNA starts reprogramming from within, initiating an intense physical metamorphosis that, although at this stage does not end with the host's death, prepares it for a far more sinister fate. As hours pass, the infected begins to feel sharp, stabbing pains in every corner of their body, symptoms that their tissues are mutating. Their skin loses its natural tone and starts to shed, giving way to a thick, tough, reptilian texture. Bumps, nodules, and hard, visible tumors appear all over their body. The head undergoes progressive deformation. The forehead broadens, the skull elongates, and takes on a strange and disproportionate shape. Internally, the organism suffers acidosis, with a pH becoming increasingly acidic, a process that will advance through the next stages until the blood itself transforms into a corrosive fluid capable of damaging tissues and metal. Despite these changes, the infected's figure retains a mostly human shape, though with a disproportionately large head covered in protuberances. Their limbs elongate slightly, a detail that can go unnoticed at first glance, but is the first indication of the transformation into a creature no longer belonging to the human world. The second phase is known as the mutant. Here, the infected's mind undergoes a much deeper metamorphosis, losing all rationality and adopting a primitive, savage, and aggressive behavior. These mutants exhibit violent madness and such severe brain deformation that their cognitive abilities are reduced to the essentials for survival and attack. Human intelligence disappears completely, and their skull and brain grotesquely deform as they grow and expand. The pain, intense in the previous stage, now becomes a driver of uncontrollable rage. The human personality vanishes, giving way to an entity driven solely by violence and instinct. Although they lack reasoning, they are not devoid of a certain instinctive cunning, and it is not uncommon to see these mutants using rudimentary tools such as metal pipes, sticks, or improvised knives to attack or defend themselves. In terms of physical appearance, they lose much of their visible humanity. The skin tightens over their muscles and bones. One of their eyes turns white, enlarged, and glassy, while the nose nearly disappears, leaving the nostrils exposed. The human silhouette begins to fade, giving way to a thinner figure, with elongated and flexible limbs that move with a strange, twisted, and unnatural rhythm. This unusual mobility gives them a tactical advantage, as they can attack from unexpected angles or escape with agility. By the end of this phase, the mutant develops superhuman strength, speed, and agility, capable of annihilating a human being with a single brutal blow. The third stage is called the Reborn. At this point, the creature loses almost every vestige of remaining humanity and acquires an amorphous, unsettling, and truly monstrous form. Its size grows noticeably, its arms and legs stretch out, ending in sharp and deadly claws, and the head becomes extremely elongated, almost unnatural. Driven solely by aggressive instinct and the need to release its suffering, this creature attacks everything around it, seeking to relieve the pain consuming it through irrational violence. The physical changes intensify. The skin begins to become translucent, revealing a gelatinous, viscous, and grotesque tissue that covers parts of its head and body. Only a few sunken traces of its original human features remain. Its eyes, now large and completely white, and its fangs, which loom threateningly beneath a deformed jaw. Its limbs continue growing, and the creature moves largely using its arms, similarly to a primate or gorilla, granting it great strength and speed. The musculature in its legs develops remarkably, while its feet mutate into limbs with 3 sharp toes, very similar to those of classic xenomorphs. This stage marks the appearance of a being increasingly close to the legendary aberrations of the Alien saga and less like a human being. Finally, the 4th and last stage, known as the Abomination or Belugamorph, represents the culmination of this genetic rewrite, the final point in the creature's evolution. This definitive form is what we commonly know as the Abomination, but it has also become popular as Beluga Head or Belugamorph due to the bulbous, rounded shape of its head, reminiscent of a beluga whale. At this stage, the skull, which was previously soft and translucent, hardens and takes on an opaque tone, much more resistant and durable, capable of protecting its brain from external damage. The body and limbs become firm and robust, with skin almost impenetrable to conventional weapons. The eyes, completely black, with no visible iris, are positioned on the sides of the head, granting it wide peripheral vision. In many respects, the Abomination resembles the XX-121 Xenomorph model and the Neomorphs, with long limbs and a primarily quadrupedal way of moving. Along its back, it has a row of sharp spikes that evoke the dorsal tubes characteristic of both Xenomorphs and Neomorphs. Although its head is smaller than that of a classic Xenomorph, it is considerably wider and more bulbous, giving it a unique and recognizable appearance. Don't be fooled by that shape, which at first glance might seem almost friendly or harmless. This creature is much faster, stronger, more agile, and fiercer than in any of its previous stages. With tough and resilient skin, sharp claws, and deadly fangs, along with relentless aggressiveness, the Abomination represents a real and terrifying threat to any human who has the unfortunate chance to cross its path.